I heard it put it this way. If you tell one joke, that's a funny joke. If you tell 10 jokes, you're a funny guy. And that's and that's the way I see it. It's like for identity, if you do something one time that's like out of your identity, that was the one thing that's not currently part of your identity. But if you did that 10 times, that is now your identity. Perhaps one of the most controversial and polarizing questions that we could ask for ourselves as a Christian Reformed denomination is, what makes a church CRC? What are the attributes that define a CRC church? What are the characteristics that define us as someone who belongs to the CRC? How important is this to our future? And I would say it's very important to know who you are, to know who we are, where we come from, and what we believe. Because if we're to reverse the trend of decline of church membership or churches closing down around the denomination, around our nation, we need to know who we are. And is there something that's deeper than just kind of the superficial attributes that we tend to cling to? And is there something deeper within our heritage or our core convictions that we need to renew and return to for the gigantic task ahead? In this episode, we talked to Pastor Scott Vanderplug and Pastor Jary Reed. Just as we start this conversation that has been going on, what makes us CRC? Hope you enjoy.
The future is now.
Welcome back to the Disciple Standard Podcast. My name is Aaron, your anchorman, Aaron, and today we've got Mr. Multiply himself on the pod, Pastor Scott Vanderplug. Thanks for being on the pod today.
I'm glad to be here.
Okay. You said you're in a funny mood. So this is...
I am in a funny mood.
Okay. We'll see how that turns out in the podcast. I'm interested.
This morning, my wife called and our car had broken down. So we tried to drive it to the shop, but it was overheating. And I had to finally get a tow truck to come and get the car. So I've just literally spent all my morning doing something that was unplanned.
Yeah.
And now...
Unappreciated.
It was funny because, all right, if you're in the tow truck business, let's just say you're in the tow truck business. I know nothing about the tow truck business. But I think to myself, don't you want to try to tow as many cars as possible in a day?
Yeah.
Okay, but we had to sit there for like an hour and 15, 20 minutes before the tow truck came. And I was thinking to myself, that's not very efficient. At least it wasn't for me.
At least he was towing 3 other cars before
Maybe.
yours.
That could have been the problem, is he towed 3 other cars before mine. Maybe I was in a line and I didn't know
You were in a
about
lineup.
Yeah.
But they didn't tell us
Nah.
when we called them that it would be an hour and 15, 20 minutes.
It was also like 8:30 in the morning for you too, right? So, yeah.
So whatever. It's all good.
Okay, so you're a little bit of in a feisty mood,
Cranky.
man. Yes, sassy mood.
I'd be
Okay.
cranky. I hate that stuff. We've waited 4 hours for a tow truck before.
4 hours?
Yeah, on the
Man, if that had happened to me.
We had an engine blow on the side of the highway, and Ransom, rather than pulling off to the grass, pulled into the bus lane. Ooh. And it was nighttime. No bus came. And man, I was just... That's one of the worst nights I've ever had. And we waited from 10 o'clock to 3 in the morning for the tow truck.
Did you wait in the car?
No, because if it hit us, we'd die.
Yeah.
So I came over, and then we'd drive off and go off and then circle back around and stay a little bit and then go. Put out flares. The police stopped and they said, "Oh, we can't help you. It's not our jurisdiction." Nobody could help us.
Wow.
But the tow truck said, "We can't come until the police verify. They have to be there." And the police said, "Well, we can't be there until the tow truck's here." We were in a catch-22, and it was the most frustrating, horrible, despicable night ever.
How do you find a tow truck other than Google? Is there like, does your car insurance call?
AAA. We had AAA,
yeah.
and this is how well they treated us.
Oh, man.
So I do not have AAA.
I didn't even think about that. I think I probably have tow with my insurance.
Yeah, like you probably have some
But
kind
I
of...
didn't. I just called a tow truck.
You just Googled it, tow truck?
No, the shop that we were taking the car to recommended this particular towing company.
I bet
what was
they did.
funny was where we were sitting in the Publix parking lot, there was actually a tow truck over by the 7-Eleven gas station.
You should have just
We
asked
called
him.
that guy, but I'm like, I didn't think it was going to take so long. I just figured he'd
12
show
hours.
up or whatever. Anyway, whatever.
I have a friend, or not a friend. He was a former youth kid. His goal was to open up his own tow truck business.
It seems to me that it might be a good business.
I mean, I guess so, if you could be responsive and quick. I would imagine like tow trucks like an Uber. Like you just call up a tow truck and boom.
Uber's a little quicker.
Well, yeah, apparently. You know, it won't take an hour and a half to get to you. Anyway.
That is frustrating, though, because you don't know.
They didn't tell us. If
Yeah,
they would have said, hey, it's going to be an hour and a half, then I would have known.
Uber, you can look on the app and say, oh, they're 6 minutes away.
That's a
if
good
you could
idea.
look on the app and say they're an hour away.
Oh.
Yeah, and then you're like, all right, get a different.
Yeah.
Now
Switched over.
that's an app that we could develop right there.
The tow
Lovable.
truck timetable.
Yeah, just like an Uber for tow trucks.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Well, the problem is you don't need a tow truck that often, so it's not an app you'd really have on your phone.
Dang it. You just shut my app down.
But you can try it anyway.
Anyway, the Right Reverend Dr. Jary Reed is in the house. Of course,
Guy
they've
who
already seen
spent
you.
4 hours in a bus lane
Oh, it's horrible.
waiting for a tow truck.
Worst night of his life.
It was one of the worst.
But
Actually,
he survived, and so did I.
you know, I wouldn't.
To be here today on this podcast with you, Eric.
I wouldn't think about like not waiting in that car and then dying if a bus would have hit me.
Oh, wow.
It was
I would
around the
think about
corner. It was around the corner.
Oh, that makes a
And
lot
I
of
said,
sense.
Rance, man, what'd you do? But the engine died. I said, yeah, but you realize you're driving an old car. One of the things you always do is you drive like second or first lane to the. You've always got to protect yourself. You always got to know that there's a possibility because it's an old car. It's only 30 years old. So
Do you think he knows that now?
he does now. Oh man, Rance.
Oh, that's great.
I'm sorry, Dad. No, you're okay. You didn't do it on purpose.
Yeah.
Just, you just don't want to set yourself up in life like this.
Well, that would be catastrophic, honestly. That's just like,
Had a bus hit the back of the car, you'd probably been like, well, there goes that 30-year-old car.
Yeah, but think of the people in the bus if there's anybody.
Oh, I know.
Think of the lawsuit against us. Our whole life would have been different.
It would have.
Oh yeah.
Ah.
Oh,
Anyway.
that's a different timeline. We don't want to journey down
You
right there.
lived to see another day.
I did.
Yeah, that's good.
So did the bus driver.
Couldn't you just put it in neutral and just like run it into somewhere else?
No, because there's all these cars coming.
Oh, I got
Not
okay.
on
And
the
they
freeway,
wouldn't
yeah.
they wouldn't move over at all. So they were within like this far of the they're just right there. And I
Yeah,
thought,
gotcha.
so when I drive and there's people that are now on the side of the road, I get the weebie jeebies because I feel it and I move over.
All right.
I think let me not be the one who gives them
Yeah.
the chills like I had the chills.
We don't want
whenever
the
a car would go
weebie-jeebies.
boom.
Yeah. Anyway, let's hope that this podcast episode doesn't give us the weebie-jeebies here because we are talking about something
Right.
that might be controversial, might not be, but I think is a worthwhile conversation.
Okay.
So we're going to be answering the question today, what does it mean to be CRC? Okay. Specifically from a church standpoint. Maybe we could take it to an individual standpoint. I'm
Do
not
you
sure.
think we have the vantage point to be able to answer that question once and for all?
No, not definitively, but I
Maybe
think
Jary can.
so.
I'll tell you what I think it is.
Yeah, so
Oh.
My
There
emphasis
we go.
here.
well, Jary, you're PCA.
I'm on
version.
the outside, yeah.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good vantage point. We at least have a few vantage points,
You're
right?
on the inside.
Jerry, you're
out.
PCA. You came
No,
into.
he's CRC as it gets.
I don't know.
I'd
You're
be
a
more CRC
CRC.
than PCA.
You're
Yeah.
CRC as it gets.
How can I? I'm on the inside looking out. He's on the outside
Moving in.
inside. He's moving in. He just got here.
That's what I'm saying. That's a good point.
Who can tell a fish what water is better than
Fish that's been out in
somebody
the
who's not
air.
a fish?
This is
A frog.
frog. I think Jerry's a frog. A little bit inside.
Amphibian.
A little bit inside, both in and out. All right, so Jerry,
Jerry.
yeah, what's your take on the CRC from someone who's moved from the PCA into it?
Now that's a loaded question. Ooh. CRC as in my experience is this church and the conference.
Okay.
That's my experience.
And classes.
And classes. But see, yeah, all right. So
And other people around classes that you know.
if I would look at this church.
And everything you read.
Okay.
The website.
That's true.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. If we look at this church, my experience with the CRC is very much gospel centered. That would be number one. More so than any PCA church I've been in, save maybe Key Biscayne would be the same way with Steve
Okay.
Brown. Gospel. Here, I think it's more intentional. I don't think Steve's was as much intentional. It just was so much of who he was that I don't think he thought about it. It just
And
happened.
it just proliferated up.
Yeah.
Out. Yeah.
Because I'm not sure the church was as intentionally gospel as maybe this church is attempting to be. So that'd be one. The second one would be education. As I look at here, how many CRC churches have started schools, and here to the point where schools have started churches, however you want to phrase it. I've been reading Van Til and Burkhoff this week, and just reiterating the sort of
See
the
how
stool.
CRC he is?
Yeah.
That's some CRC names right there.
He just
we talked about
casually
it.
reads Burkhoff.
Yeah, in my free time. But you know, the we talked about it. The three-legged whatever stool, family church, school, and just the emphasis on that. I was down at Lake Worth this last week, and there was a guy there who teaches at the Christian school in Lake Worth, probably Lake Worth Christian.
Yep.
He's been there 30-something years. So I asked him the question, something that we were asked at the conference between a covenant school and a mission school. And he's in a covenant school, but he was making a case for how it's really a mission school, even though it's under the guise of a covenant school. And so the education is huge. That would be. Trying to think if those, if we look at our classes, then church planting that is inclusive would also be there is a leveling out of the leadership that I think is healthy. So I'd say in the PCA, and this is maybe not fair, you have senior pastors, associate pastors, assistant pastors. It's more of a business model. Okay. Here, it's more of a relational model. You can get ordained, commissioned to preach. Is that level number one, first step? And you can have the tow truck guy who is commissioned to preach. Got it. And he is viewed with great respect. And he can preach. And he's not hampered because he's not the real guy. He didn't go to seminary. He's getting some training. And it's a much more user-friendly model that I think I like. So those would be three.
Cool.
To start.
Scott mentioned your experience at the conference. Real quick, what was your experience at the conference like? What was your take, maybe in general, and then more specifically, your take on, just a breadth of different CRC pastors coming here?
Yeah, it's a loaded question here.
It's loaded if you want it loaded. This is just the question.
Because it is loaded in my brain. When we did a comedy night, and we had our Italian comedian trying to make Dutch people laugh, and they were laughing, but they were laughing at things I wasn't laughing at, and I thought, this is fascinating. The humor is different. There was a different, but then there was a collective growing together. And I thought, this is going to be interesting. Maybe my world and their world, we see things, and there's a distance in their sort of worldview from mine. Like, I would say ours is actually pretty close in a lot of ways. We've talked about this. But then as I got to know them, I really, it's like most of the people I met were salt of the earth people. Nobody's trying to impress anybody with who they were. I really liked a lot of the young guys. I felt a lot of the guys my age were just exhausted. It felt like some of them had been trying to make some changes, and they feel hamstrung. So there felt like there was desperation, there was hope, and to me the strength were these young dudes trying different things. It was almost like they were being a little rebellious. They weren't, but they were out there trying things, and they weren't necessarily getting the support maybe they wanted, but they were doing it anyway. And then there were these churches that are non-Dutch churches. That sounds weird, but minority
Korean.
groups. Yeah, and Clarence out in Seattle.
Okay, yeah.
Marco with and Revelation University.
Good guys.
And they're just doing some really cool stuff that has great integrity, that seems to be theologically motivated in a real, and they're not bothered by some of what it looked like some of the others were bothered by. They're just doing their thing. They're not looking for help really from anybody. They're just doing it. So that to me was the strength. I told Scott I like that we started with whoever decided to start with a comedian was brilliant, because it set the stage that we could have just done a Bible, like a prayer time. We're going to do a Friday night prayer time, and then we would have been a real church. But we did jokes, and he's making fun of people's wives, and and cell phones and just mundane stuff. I thought, what's that setting of the pattern is to understand the gospel, you have to laugh.
Yeah.
And to me, that was great.
Not take yourself so seriously. That's probably what it
It's
really.
what?
Not to take yourself so seriously. Like we're like
just relax.
holier than thou. And all
So
this stuff.
I thought that was great. So
Okay.
a little bit there.
Yeah, very good. Scott, in general, how do you want to answer that question? I will get into it, but
Which question?
what does it mean to be CRC? I know you've got, here's how you taught me, and here's how you teach everybody here, right? First, it means to be a Christian, right? A Christian, and then particularly Protestant, right? And then Reformed of that Protestant arm or branch of the tree, and then, or tradition, that's the word. And then from there, CRC is from the denomination. Okay, I get it. Like, this is kind of standard stuff. But what for you, what does it mean to be CRC?
Yeah, I don't know if it's so easy to kind of define something, but I'll give it my best go.
Sure.
So I think this is just me reflecting about denominations. It seems that if you think about the whole history of the Christian church, denominations is a pretty new invention. I think it might be something that's particularly North American. You had all these different churches in Europe. The Protestant Reformation did its thing. Then people came here, and you had people coming from Germany. You had people coming from, every different nationality with different languages, and they all had various different theological convictions. And so we started all these various different denominations. And I suppose now, as a result, kind of in reaction to that, we have non-denominational, which is like its own breakaway denomination that's sort of anti-denominations.
Right.
And one could maybe ask the question, like, is this how Christianity is supposed to be? Like, you've got Jesus' prayer in John 17, Father, may they be one just as you and I are one. And so I guess maybe I would just say that it's a more recent development in the Christian church. We in North America obviously exported it all over the world because everywhere missions went, we have denominations all over the world as well. I suppose that probably as a result of that, the easiest way that people come up with the definition of a denomination is to distinguish it from others. And I'm not so sure that in the spirit of John 17, the thing we should do is like separate ourselves from others to define ourselves. So now if I get away from that and try to say, what is CRC? And I don't know if I can be successful, but I'll try.
Try.
I think that, what you have in the church that is really special is relationships. And if you're in a particular denominational tradition, you end up having natural relationships with a whole group of people. You may never have even really met them before, but if you belong to the same denomination, then you hold something in common. You know people who know people who know people. I think this is very common in any given denominational circle. Hey, do you know this person? Yeah, me too. That kind of thing happens. I think actually that's common. Maybe some people would recoil at it, like, are we too cliquish or insider? It could be a flaw, but I see it as a feature. It's good to have relationships. And it's possible in a local church, you've got relationships inside of your church, and that's just fine. That's good. But I think it's important to have relationships beyond just your local church as well. And that's what a denomination provides. Now, in the history of our particular denomination, I see that there's sort of been like a stream. And there are probably things that are in that stream, maybe, that might define what's there. If I was to point out what's in the stream, I would say that there's a particular kind of, you said it, first of all, we're all Christians, that's in the stream. Then we're Protestant Christians, that's in the stream. Then we're Reformed Christians, that's in the stream. Then we're continental Reformed Christians. That's in the stream. And I guess by that, we have some creeds and confessions. Well, really the confessions that are slightly different from like the Presbyterian stream, which follows the Westminster standards. We follow the Heidelberg Catechism and the Canons of Dort. And because we have a set of confessions, there's probably ways in which we articulate the Reformed faith that wouldn't be altogether different from Presbyterian, but there's some differences. It's not massive, but it's there.
Three forms of unity stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, the three forms of unity. So the Heidelberg Catechism, which I think is meant to be kind of like a teaching document, it's a catechism, and I think it was meant to kind of pass the faith from one generation to the next, tends to be, I'm teaching this Greek class over at the middle school and high school, and we just learned, hey, eirene. You remember what that means, Aaron?
No idea.
Peace. And so there's an English word, irenic, peaceful. It's an irenic document. It's not so bombastic, or it has that, we do detest errors and we reject, but I think it's a little bit more. So I would say that the Christian Reformed Church, as a result, probably, if I was to compare it to other streams of Reformed faith that I've seen, we're maybe a little more congenial. I don't know if that's true or not. I'm not saying that other people are more bombastic, but
Right.
I think we tend to be
Agreeable, peaceable.
a little more peaceable, agreeable, and maybe that's related to our confessions. Maybe it's related to culture. I don't know what it's related to. And there's variation around our denomination. I mean, trust me, we get people who are cage stage Calvinists too.
Sure.
And maybe that's just, I don't know. I don't detect as much cage stage across the CRC as I do in other Reformed circles.
Yeah.
But we still get our cage stage,
Mostly in the South. Mostly in the.
No, I think just anywhere. People, they get exposed to these ideas. And I think what's happened with the advent of the internet is we've started to be much more influenced by a lot of other sources as well. And so, you get your Mark Driscolls and, whoever, John Pipers and whoever, and next thing you know, people are feeling a little more cagey, stagey.
Okay.
But I don't detect that across the denomination as a whole. I do think, just culturally speaking, we can be stubborn and stuck. And I mean, we have flaws. I'm not trying to just paint the picture well. So that's all there. Now, if I was to say, I think this is a great question, identity. Who are we? And often our identity is formed by outcomes. So I think a lot of people, they may say to themselves, well, we've never really been that good at evangelism, so we're not an evangelistic denomination. But I'd like to respond and say that I don't think that our identity should be determined by our outcomes, but by some kind of larger sense of calling, or going back to what Jary says, I really think that the gospel is at the heart. So the gospel changes your identity and you start imagining what you could be as a result of the new identity you have in Christ. And I imagine that the CRC is the most robust missions denomination that has ever existed.
Are you saying that tongue in cheek, or what are you saying?
I'm saying
you really believe that?
This is what I imagine.
Oh, you imagine?
Envision.
Yeah.
I believe.
This is what we should be, what we're called to be.
I've seen it. I mean, here we are at Sunlight, and I just see that our tradition, when applied to secular culture, it helps people make sense of the world and sense of faith, and we just have a lot of people coming to Christ, and that has given me the thought that, wow, maybe our outcomes have not been that we're entirely evangelistic yet. Although every time we have an encounter with culture, like look at what happened in mission fields, we send out 100 people and we get denominations of 1 million people. So maybe our tradition is like the tradition that really can have an evangelistic outcome. So I know that if you just think about outcomes right now, you wouldn't say, well, our denomination's known for the Great Commission. But if you ask me, I think gospel, we are the denomination that has Christ at the center and articulates a robust gospel. Then I would put Great Commission next. We are the denomination that makes disciples.
And how do you point to that? Like, where do you point to in the CRC or its history or its present?
So, okay, if you're getting me to point at outcomes, then
no, I'm getting like, how do you come to that conclusion for us? Like, is it us holding to the three forms of unity? Is it us holding to teaching our kids like, hey, the Heidelberg Catechism? Like, what is it that you say, like, this is what the CRC is about? When you look around the CRC, is it what we're teaching? Is it what we're talking about? Is it what we're passionate about? I'm not looking at outcomes. I'm looking at, like, you're saying,
yeah.
This is what we should be, what we could be. We have the resources. What are we looking at here?
I'm not sure what your question is.
I thought you just said, yeah.
I did. I understood every word.
Yeah, so, okay.
But I'm trying to find out, what are you asking me?
I'm trying to say, you believe, to my surprise, like we are the premier, how'd you put it? Mission, Great Commission. Where do you get that from?
Well, again, if you look at outcomes, then it's not true yet. But if you look at deep identity in Christ, then I think it's becoming true and more true every day.
Okay, that's what okay, got it.
If you look at outcomes, though, you do have Nigeria.
Sure. Like I said, wherever the CRC got out of its bubble and encountered some other cultures, it's amazing what's happened.
Whenever we started engaging.
So I think, this is what I think, and I could be wrong. We'll have to talk. You got to have some church historian on the pod.
We'll have to
figure this out. But you had this group of Dutch immigrants who were fleeing persecution in Europe. They get here in the mid 1800s. And at first, like any immigrant group, they speak Dutch. They don't speak English. They're gathering together, and it's cultural. I think as, for that reason, there was something of a bubble where it was us versus the world, so to speak. We're together. We might have to be out there in the world. We're trying to make a way, but, the church was more insular. Then I think World War II came. And I just think that Dutch sounds a lot like German. So now if you're Dutch speaking, the general features of Dutch people look a lot like the general features of Germanic people. The language sounds a lot the same. So I think that there was an extension of insularity where, people weren't, it's not easy to let's go take culture, let's go change the world. So I think there was a little bit more of insularity. And I just think now, if you go multi-generations where you're kind of keeping to yourself and not engaging the world, then I think just culturally speaking, that's been difficult. The Christian Reformed Church has done amazingly well at welcoming other immigrant groups. So I think, if you think about Korean churches or, other immigrant groups, various Hispanic groups, whatever.
Native Americans.
We were good at, I think, enfolding because we know how to be an immigrant group that keeps to ourselves.
Okay.
But I think there's a stream, an underlying stream that eventually causes that to melt. Causes us to go out, causes us to engage the culture. I think that it's part of our Reformed identity that eventually we're not content to just hey, I got my ticket to heaven and I'll just quietly huddle up with my other fellow ticket holders until Jesus returns. I think it's in our theology. It's in our gospel presentation. It's in our way of thinking. But there's been some cultural things that have
hindered that.
So anyway, I don't want to just think about what our previous outcomes have been. I want to think about what our future is and what our calling is. And I believe that what's going to happen is our core identity is going to change our processes. And as our processes change, the outcomes are going to shift.
Yeah.
And wherever you see us doing this, encountering other cultures like we did in Nigeria, you just see this tremendous impact. I still remember I was probably 16, 17 years old. I was part of this Christian Reformed church. I've described it before. It wasn't the greatest of places. But, you know, we had catechism class. We had sermons that were teaching the Bible. We were into the Bible. And I remember that there was this conference that we went to in downtown Portland, Oregon, and I encountered a group of people that were Christians, but they belonged to like this Pentecostal church. And when we started talking to them, they knew almost nothing about the Bible. Their faith was just like inch deep. And if you had asked them to explain their faith to any other person, there was no explanation. It's just like, I don't know, we just love Jesus, which is great.
Yeah.
But there's no ability to like engage people or engage the culture around.
Yeah.
And I just, even then I was like, oh, the faith that I've been handed has more explanatory power or is able to talk to people who don't know anything about Christianity. And I think that's just like a gift that has been passed down in our stream. I'm not trying to define us as against other people. I don't think that, I don't think this division thing is healthy. But I think it's more like the legacy we have and the future that might be in front of us that are more interesting to me.
Yeah. Yeah. So would you agree if I summarize it like this, or maybe this is my perspective on it, is that the current vision or the current, I guess, self-awareness of the CRC is based off of our previous outcomes? We're Dutch, we were insular.
No. Those aren't outcomes. Yeah. I think we were Dutch just is like who was in the CRC at the time.
Right. Well, yeah, you described it as being more insular.
Outcomes, I mean, like how well are we reaching culture?
We're not
what about
the church planting
if we
organization.
Were to evaluate how well we did with regard to church planting, evangelism, disciple making, then I guess in some ways you'd never point at our statistics and go, oh, wow.
Yeah.
They're doing so much better than whoever.
Right.
I think actually our outcomes never matched the reality of our identity.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get to. It's like currently, would you agree with this, that currently a lot of, maybe a lot, I don't know, some number of pastors or denominational officials would view our current identity as the outcomes. Like, hey, we are not the church planting organization or discipleship, but you're saying that deeper than that, there's a core identity. You could point to the teachings, you could point to my own lived experience, that deeper than that, we are this. We just need to return to who our core identity is. So it's not necessarily our recent track record, but it's like to the core of who we are, our lived identity and what we teach and what we hold to as far as what we believe and how we articulate the gospel. That's who our real identity is. And when we live into that, we would have a better future, a more hopeful, a brighter future.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I'm getting from you.
Suppose that you're in second grade and, I don't know, during that second grade, you fail to really grasp addition and subtraction. And so then you get to third grade and they start trying to get you to multiply or what, I don't know, maybe these aren't the right grades for all this, but just suppose that. And you transferred from one school to the other and now you're behind. And then you just said, oh, everybody else is better at multiplying than I am. They know what 3 + 3 is right away, and I have to think about it and do something on my fingers. And so you just said to yourself, I'm not good at math as a result of the fact that you're doing this when people are asking, what's 3 + 3? And I think that would be like, that wouldn't be a good way of forming your identity.
Yeah, that's
I'm good at this, I'm bad at that. Because I think humans have this incredible ability and potential. And let's just say that, your parents hired you a tutor, you caught back up. And not only that, once you knew all these facts, you just found that actually you were quicker at learning than everyone else in your class. Oh, I'm good at math.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm just saying that like our identity can't be one-to-one with what we're good and bad at in terms of outcomes. I think it like comes from somewhere deeper, and if I tried to figure out what that is, I probably wouldn't be very articulate anymore.
Yeah.
What forms our identity? Like, who am I, Scott? Who is Jary? Who is Aaron? And we might say a lot of things about our likes and our dislikes or about our personality, but who are we to even say who we are? And now, if I can't even figure out who I am, how can I figure out who our denomination is? I'm
Right.
not sure. But I'm sensing it's not about just what I'm good or bad at or what my outcomes have been. It has more to do with, like, who is God calling me to be? Who did he form me to become?
Yeah.
And in a way, that identity question is like maybe more up to God than me.
Well, I consider that more of a, I don't know, enlightenment. I'm repeating the words of like Tim Keller and stuff. I heard him or read something about it, some identity thing anyway. Essentially, he was talking about how we tend to think about our identity as something that we shape and we form ourselves. And so you look at your whatever you look at and you try to formulate, this is who I am. You could see this easily in middle school. However, he said that our identity, more often than not, is kind of placed on us in negative or positive ways. And so if you had like parents who told you you're one kind of way, teachers, mentors, you're one kind of way, you kind of believed that and you kind of lived into that. And if you had good parents, good teachers, you kind of lived into that. That's kind of my experience, at least. Then he said, okay, just take that to the highest degree. What does God say about you? Who does God say you are? What does God call you to? Okay. This is in line with what you're saying. Maybe it's not that we have to formulate our own identity and based on the highlights and lowlights of our lives, but instead we live into the calling and the person that we are told we are called to be by our Heavenly Father. I don't know, we were talking about this, me and Jary, in just a previous episode about the gospel identity and its rooted nature in teachers and why that's so important because, he believes and I believe, I don't want to speak for you, but the teachers set some kind of tone of identity in the hearts and minds of students. That's probably why you spend so much time in identity. That's the first thing you talk about in Teachers Academy. Maybe you could talk to us a little bit about that, like expand on that thought. Why is that the first part of what you're working so hard on in formulating the gospel-centered identity, and how does that play out in teachers, students, and people?
Got to know who you are before you do anything. I'm thinking about the CRC with identity. Hang on, I'm going to switch it, and then I'll come back to that. Does every church have the same identity, every denomination, or are there distinctives in church? That's for a later. Like
Let's not do it later. Let's do it now. What?
Okay.
Are you talking about individual churches, or are you talking about denominations?
No. If you look at Scripture and what God calls the community of Christ to do, and we like to break up into our smaller little groups, whatever, because of whatever historical background or theological differences. If we were taking Scripture seriously, however you want to phrase it, would every church be able to articulate the same core statements of who we are, identity? Or
I guess we have a Christian identity that should carry over, right?
Or the question is, like, as I'm talking about the CRC with education, does every church, like, I felt like maybe God's called the CRC towards education in a way maybe he hasn't called other denominations.
That's probably true.
And so does it work? Does our identity work itself out differently in denominations? So you can look at a denomination and say, even though I don't want to do the outcomes thing. I like that, but are there distinctives even in the CRC where you think we have this core identity, but we really are unique?
Yeah, and this is what I'm struggling to get at here, because why was our denomination more drawn toward Christian education than, let's say, other denominations? And I think there was it probably is some kind of it reduplicates. So there was something about us that wanted to educate kids. Mm-hmm. And then once we started educating kids, we're like, and we're the ones who educate kids. And it probably, there's probably some reduplicating kind of thing.
See, that's one of the things that's very attractive to the CRC, because you take children seriously.
Yeah.
I think here, so much what we do, if you walk around campus, it's geared towards, we're not here and kids are around us. Kids are here and we're around them.
Okay.
And that to me is an incredible priority.
Yeah, another way to put
this is their
that.
facility and we happen to use it.
Yeah, another way to put that is like, long-term discipleship or passing down the faith, or some kind of priority on legacy and not being the last link in the chain. However way to describe it, that's kind of, we're all kind of describing the same thing here.
So we're doing missions, the Great Commission, but in a unique way. That there are a lot of churches around us that may have a preschool, but have no intention of having a school. Hundreds of kids.
Or may not see it as an opportunity to share faith.
Yes.
Like we have this preschool, we're serving some kind of business purpose in the community or whatever, but they don't see it as connected to discipleship and faith life.
Well, that's interesting too, that you have made a conscious choice to be a mission school, not a covenant school, which changes how you engage community or culture.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry I changed the subject there,
No.
but I think to me that is the huge sort of distinction, and the other one would be the raising up of leaders and not making the bar some arbitrary educational bar, but a calling and relational bar.
Yeah. Well, the reason why I asked this important question, and it's funny how you started asking this question. It's like, I'm going to try to define this because maybe in some respect it should be simple. We should have like a sharp, crystal clear answer to what it means to be CRC. Maybe we don't, and maybe some people have a better understanding, and I'm not too sure. You're trying to call more people to that.
If I was to say, hey, Aaron, who are you?
Yeah.
Would you just have this sharp, crystal clear, simple, like 5 words that define you perfectly? Or I don't know.
Yeah, I would
have that for myself.
Really? I would have big spheres, and I think I could say the same thing about you.
Yeah, I could do a sentence of Scott.
Yeah, of course, me too.
Yeah, but would that capture me?
Not all
Well,
of
I
you.
don't think anything captures
No, yeah,
you.
not everything.
It would certainly get a good portion of
Okay.
it. You have an entrepreneur spirit and a love for the gospel.
Yeah.
In a way I've never seen anyone be an entrepreneur pastor.
Yeah, really. I mean,
It's an oxymoron
that
that works.
encapsulates some degree of you, right? Like that's what I'm
It
like.
gets something of me.
It does. It
Mine
does.
would be, I'm a teacher who happens to relate well to kids. Some funky reason why, I don't know.
Yeah. Mine would be accident prone. So
Well, when you're with them, 500 pounds.
I know it was more than that.
But I would just say, like, okay, you touched on some things that are core,
yeah.
but
Yeah, clearly.
it's
bigger.
just like
Like core.
It's just like
yeah.
some part of me, and I would have to agree that those things are true. But if you tried to reduce me down to that,
Yeah.
No,
that
no.
wouldn't be fair either.
No, I'm not trying to reduce you down to that. What I'm trying to say is that you're unveiling, in my perspective, you're unveiling things about the CRC, core identity things, that I think people need to be reminded of. I certainly do. I certainly need to be reminded that, yeah. I never heard you, well, maybe I have, but I'm not sure if a lot of people would agree with you, and they should, saying that we are the most, most gospel mission. What'd you say? Even so, it was kind of.
I'm just like,
it was bombastic.
gospel,
It was
why
big.
don't we become the denomination that's best known for the gospel, best known for the Great Commission?
Yeah.
There it is.
Historically, though, in the U.S., though, it's been the independent fundamentalist, of which
That's
my
it.
parents were a part.
Okay.
That are what?
The missionaries, Sudan Interior Mission.
Okay, that might be true.
A lot of the, I'd say in the 50s and 60s, well, maybe
And let's not
maybe the
give up
30s.
on the Pentecostals.
Yeah, but theirs was a different direction.
There
thinking
was.
my parents was more towards Africa.
Yeah.
A lot of Africa. Pentecostals headed more south.
Well,
Well,
there's a lot of Pentecostals in Africa now.
Yeah, now there are. Yeah.
Well, there's also, that dynamic of the infinite game here that Simon Sinek talks about, where you're like looking towards this side at other people, and now you're playing a finite game. We're like, okay, am I more than them, or are they more than me?
Yeah.
Are they better than us, or are we better than them? Or we just look at our own selves and say, who are we called to be? Who are we? What are we trying to do?
See, I like the distinctive talk because, like, as I work on like job description, where do I spend my time?
Yeah.
So I'm not an administrator. I can do it, but what a hassle. Like when we do finances with Next Generation, Ethan loves that. He'll say, "We have this much." I said, cool. And you'll say, can you get your receipts in? Yeah, I'll get there. Read, we need your receipts. It doesn't. If
Part
it
of
comes
me,
out of my
that's
pocket,
part of me.
I don't care.
Yeah.
Let's just do what we need to do. So it helps me to focus. Here's where I'm going to spend. Here's where I'm given a good day here. So I do a lot of discipleship because that to me is something I am drawn to and something I do well.
Yeah.
What I don't want to do is a lot of, and then I can give you something else.
Right.
So even with the denomination, you look at distinctives and you say, we can't be good at everything.
No, I agree.
But we can, I think, Great Commission, because that fits to me. To me, it's education. That's I've already said it. The two things for me are education and every person counts. Like Francis Schaeffer's book, No Little People, and no little people can become pastors.
Yeah,
you don't have to have the big guns, and even the model here that there's a plurality of speakers. Mm-hmm. If you feel like God's called you, you have a voice, and you have opportunity. I just think that's a hallmark of this, whether it's true of the whole denomination, but certainly here.
Yeah, certainly here. That was an interesting. I remember talking to Scott. This is a 3-year project now, maybe. Try to get Scott to 50% of the preaching Sundays. It was a 3-year project. I got him down to maybe 40 Sundays out of the year.
So it's interesting because,
30?
Now Jary just said, hey, this is our identity.
Yeah.
It wasn't always that way.
That's right.
There was like an imagination that came ahead of the reality.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So there's your imagination, the Great Commission stuff.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, like, identity isn't necessarily static. It's almost like a vision for the future.
Absolutely. I heard it put it this way. If you tell one joke, that's a funny joke. If you tell 10 jokes, you're a funny guy. And that's and that's the way I see it. It's like for identity, if you do something one time that's like out of your identity, that was the one thing that's not currently part of your identity. But if you did that 10 times, that is now your identity.
So you can define your identity. And
to
then direct it.
Well,
because some people are just funny.
Yeah, absolutely.
And their identity is they're funny even without trying to be funny, but then some work at it maybe.
And then you change situations. You change people around you, and now you're not funny. You're not the funny guy anymore. You're the new guy.
Fun guy.
You like.
We had a kid that we used to call Fun Guy, and I saw him this weekend, and I sent a picture to my buddy Lenny, and all he wrote on it was "Fun Guy."
Was he a mushroom?
What?
Was he a mushroom?
No, but he wasn't funny either. That's why he was Fun Guy, because he wasn't.
You know what I'm saying? Anyway,
Fun Guy.
The reason
I
why
feel like this is a conversation where we're all just like grasping at things, but we're not really up to the challenge.
Yeah, maybe that's the case.
It's fun
maybe,
to think about, though.
Maybe it's a
It is fun to
longer
think about.
conversation. It's at least an important one, right? I think it's something, if we're going to have to change the trajectory of the denomination and of church decline here, I mean, we have to at least consider a renewed identity, I'm going to say.
All right, let me add this too. From my outside looking in at the conference, I was telling Scott he's seen as a player because you're not rebellious in the least. Well, you are. You're not rebellious, but you get an idea and you just run with it.
Okay.
And that can be a strength or a weakness, but you run with it. And I think people here were thrilled to know that there is a guy with a sort of plan, and they could join you.
Yeah.
And there's a sense in which, as you are talking about what the identity of the denomination is, your thoughts are important because people are actually listening to you. I could say everything all day, but no one has any idea who I am. I'm not part of the CRC.
I'm Jary Reed.
I'm Jary. But you've got a history. You know these guys. You've been a part. You've stood up and caused trouble at Synod regularly, so they know who you are.
Yeah.
And even your demeanor, the conference. One of the things I liked about the conference, you were there. Some people, when they presented, wanted to look like they were the professionals. You got up there and you just wanted to be people's friends. You came across as so approachable. You told your silly joke about the frog. Was it the frog?
Yeah, the frog.
There you go. And you just drew people in, and then you were willing to be in conversation with everybody. And so I thought, here's a guy who they're looking at saying, we can follow this guy, but you're a guy that they can actually follow. It's not a position. It's not a paid position. It's not authoritative. You're authoritatively, but relationally so, not institutionally so. So you modeled it really well, and And people were like, yeah, they came down to Florida.
Yeah.
I mean, 170 or so people.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
it's pretty amazing.
Yeah,
That part's pretty amazing.
So you've got a unique role to play. Whatever that guy said about you on his podcast. Vanderclay.
Yeah, so back to the conference. Two things about the conference. Number one, I know that Scott intentionally designed the main stage sessions to start off with gospel identity, to like start off with Goheen and talk about, okay, what does the gospel mean to us? And he brought in Goheen for that. That was intentional. So it starts with gospel identity. I mean, you know that by design we did that. Number two, in regards to the conference, and that's to wrap up the identity part. But the reason why I asked this question, what does it mean to be a CRC? And certainly we're not going to define it definitively, just the three of us or whatever. You know, this is a larger conversation. We had someone who attended, Pastor Mo, who attended the conference, friend of the pod, friend of Sunlight, friend of Scott, friend of sinners, whatever, you know, like just a friend. And he had a friend of tax collectors. He had a reaction video that he put out about 2 weeks ago now on just his take on the conference. Jake, if you could play that starting at 4:36, and then I'll just have you react to it.
And multiplying. I do still think there needs to be conversation as to what does it mean to be a Christian Reformed church. I do think that many people at like Sunlight, as much growth as they're having there, would find it challenging to attend many other CRC churches throughout North America. It would just be difficult. And I don't think they themselves see that as a problem, but I do. And I'm sure there's many others that do. And I don't think avoiding that conversation is helpful. I think we should probably have that conversation. What are, outside of the three forms of unity, there are certain ways of being that ought to be talked about in terms of liturgy, in terms of even how music fits into worship and things like that. Those are going to be awkward conversations, but I don't think it's wise to avoid them.
Okay, so yes, you pointed to me. We were talking about what is Pastor Mo reacting to. Let me just start here. You said it, I said it, we're agreeing that it'd be best to have a conversation live in person. And you kind of did, not on this topic, but in the previous podcast, he was here, he was sitting right in that chair. Great podcast, check it out. It's probably links in the description. Anyway, he was saying, in general, broad strokes, what does it mean to be a CRC? And it's not a conversation that we should avoid. We should address it directly. And number two, he was referring or reacting to the worship specifically. But I think in general, it's a wider conversation. And at least we could say this. I think if I could surmise from the video, that the way a CRC church worships is part of the Christian Reformed Church identity. What's your take on that? Is that true? Do you agree with that? How much do you agree with it or not? Jary, you had a reaction too, and either one, you guys can take that away.
I got some stuff to say.
All right.
So I think this is true. Like if you were to look at the history, if you go back, I don't know, let's say 40 years ago, the CRC probably would appear much more as a franchise than it does today, in the sense that, if you go to one McDonald's to the other McDonald's, they may be slightly different, but it's the same thing. And you can go from one CRC church to another CRC church, and the order of worship was the same, the hymnals were the same. It was almost sort of cookie cutter. I mean, the building might be slightly different. The people are going to be different people, obviously, but you're going to just feel like an immediate recognition as you went from one McDonald's to the next, one CRC to the next. It was more franchise. Okay. But I think this goes back to what I was saying earlier with regard to identity. There may be all kinds of things that sort of form your outcomes or outward appearance, but there's like a stream underneath that might be more important and will eventually cause you to change. And I think what's happened over the last 40 years is that stream had to do with the question of authority. You can have a centralized organization with a central authority, or you can have a decentralized network where you end up being connected to each other, but it's not so much exactly the same, but there's a lot of variation. And I think what wound up happening is that the CRC, because of its identity underneath that stream, started recognizing that when it comes to the Great Commission, you're going to have a kind of incarnational presence that's going to cause each individual church to assess its community and its needs and everything else, and then make choices around how to reach people or what might work well for Christ. And I think musical style would be one of those. You know, I would expect that if you were going to plant a church in New York City, there might be a musical style that you would choose as compared to St. Louis, as compared to
Mobile,
Seattle,
Alabama.
as compared to Mobile, Alabama. So every different place is going to have some freedom with regard to kind of like musical style, which I heard Mo reacting to. And I think maybe, I don't know, I would have to talk to Mo. His thought is that we should be more the same. And maybe in his mind, not the style that we are. And then I think I heard him saying that, hey, if people went from Sunlight to some CRC church, they might struggle because the outward kind of musical styles or whatever, the order of worship, the liturgy might be different than it is here. I don't know. I actually think that one of the most brilliant things about the CRC is we all agree within a certain set of parameters. There's like confessional reality where we all agree to some doctrine and, a church order or whatever.
Guardrails.
But we're not overly prescriptive. Like, these are the 4 songs you should sing today. We're not like a franchise with a centralized power structure that's pushing things down to us. We're responding to our own cultural reality as best as we possibly can. And I wouldn't expect that in Port St. Lucie, Florida, all the answers to all these various incarnational ministry questions would be the same as they would be in Chicago.
Right.
And I think maybe the thing that's core to us is that we're allowing for diversity with regard to these things, because we're not centralized like a Roman Catholic Church would be, or I don't know, they have a lot of variety too. But we're not this kind of like top-down, you'll do it this way kind of denomination. We're a relationship-based, decentralized network who shares a history and a theology. And the underlying stream of that is that we all have felt perfectly free in our own context to try to design the particulars of our ministry in such a way that we think it'll be relevant to the culture around us.
Yeah.
And I think that's good in the long run, and it's why we're going to, quote unquote, win out as the Great Commission denomination.
Well, it's flexible in many different contexts, is what you're saying.
I am.
The principle of holding particular guardrails just theologically and allowing for a lot of flexibility in choosing whatever songs we want to choose within those parameters is the defining mark of the CRC.
But the more we relate to each other, the more, we might influence each other or whatever. So there's relationships there, and we cross-fertilize. But I would say probably what's happened in a lot of Christian Reformed churches, I think this is also true of ours, is we've said to ourselves, there's no reason that the CRC has to become so distinct that we have to create our own songs that aren't shared by anyone else in the culture. So there's lots of churches that sing kind of contemporary Christian worship music. So do we.
Yeah.
Why? Because to be CRC is not like, man, we got to define ourselves as against, the church down the street.
Yeah.
Hey, we're all Christians.
I mean, that's the case in Sunlight in itself. We have 6 campuses, 6 churches, and they're all kind of different. Like the music and how it's displayed. Yeah. I mean, it really is. They're all kind of different. What's your take on it, Pastor Jary?
This is not something that, like, I would hope churches are different. I mean, if you talk about the churches, if you would go into the homes of the pastors of these churches, they would all be different. The way they raise their children would be different. The food they eat would be different.
That's a good point.
So there's not a prescription that says you're a CRC pastor. Here's the car that you drive. Here's the way that, your children go to public school, private school, whatever, homeschool. Those are differences. So I would think, even personally, one of the things I appreciate about our music is the real attempt to tie it to Scripture. The real attempt to say, we're not singing songs about us, we're singing songs about who God is. We're singing songs that are made to be sung together. So theologically, I think what we are doing is robust. Whether a particular person would say that's the kind of music I'm comfortable with, that's a different story. And fortunately, there are different types of churches that sing different types of music, and you find one in which you fit. Would I fit in the northern CRC church? I have no idea, because I've not been in one. I have never been in another CRC church other than Lake Worth. And it's got sort of the feel of this. I mean, Eli does the music, and it's similar.
Yep.
With his particular songs, but the same priorities. Would I fit in a church that sang the hymns? Probably. I mean, I can't say, but I'm comfortable here. Part of the reason I can work here is because I'm comfortable here. There are not probably a lot of churches where I would feel comfortable enough to say, yeah, this is where I'd like to be. Are there people that would be uncomfortable here in the CRC? Yeah, certainly. But that's not a bad thing. I go to certain homes and I think, yeah, this isn't the home where I'd want to stay.
Yeah, so I guess the question, and maybe it's just raised by what Mo was saying, is like, how big a value is it that every single member of this church would be able to be a member of every other church quickly?
Yeah.
I don't know how important that is.
See, I like a worship service where there's freedom. I like the worship, and this would tick people off. There are times where people are up front and they've got on a hat, baseball cap. Man, growing up, you do that, you're going straight to hell. There are times people are up there wearing shorts. I remember Rick was up there one day wearing shorts because he had done something, and then he came to church to practice, and he didn't have time to go home and change. And so he wore shorts.
It's got shins?
Yeah,
and
I
kneecaps?
could see his knees, and it was nice. And so you've got and nobody knows.
That's the title of this podcast, Rick's Nice Knees.
Yeah. And nobody cared. It just didn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
There's the freedom. There's freedom to, again, the laughter. There's freedom to say things that are non-scripted. Not every, we've got the smoke. The smoke stuff's neither here nor there. I think it's funny because I watched the guys in the back, and I think they're getting asphyxiated by the spirit smoke. And so periodically,
the
if I'm
spirit
preaching,
smoke.
I will turn it off, and they look at me and go, "Thank you." Nobody has any idea whether it's on or off. And who cares? So I like that there's freedom, that there's a little bit of loosey-goosey, because there's not. There is, but there isn't, if that makes sense. But not every church is that way. It's going to be very, we have our certain, here's what we're going to say now. Now, brothers and sisters in Christ.
Yeah.
Whatever. That's not where I'm going to be comfortable.
Sure. And you're both saying, like, hey, it's okay to not be comfortable in another church. Like, there's not a high value in a rote duplication or franchise model.
Well, I just feel like this is where maybe we start going astray, is if we notice these differences and then we start kind of like making judgments.
Yeah. Either way, either direction.
Yeah, either direction.
Yep.
Like, we're better than you, or you're better than, I don't know.
Right.
It's just God called us to a different ministry, or.
Yeah. I was in a CRC church. That is very traditional. And I
That's
went.
Right.
I went there, but I went to the wrong church. I went to go hear one of my students preaching. He was at a PCA church down the street, but I had no idea. I thought he was at the CRC church. So I went and I always sit in the very back. So I was wearing jeans and a t-shirt, Christian attire, sitting in the very back, and they started the routine back and forth, the readings and all. Well, I just was enthralled because I felt I was back in the 70s. It was a church I grew up in. So I was enjoying, and I knew the guys up front, so I was enjoying it thoroughly because it was just so foreign to where I am at this point in my life. But it's what I grew up with, and there was a certain comfort there. Well, whatever I was doing, I came across as someone who never goes to church, because a woman came up to me and she brought me a hymnal and she brought me a piece of paper and she began to explain to me everything they were doing in the service. And I thought, this is amazing. She thinks I've never been in church. I have no idea what I'm doing. My reaction wasn't one of judgment. It was just I was enthralled because it was a whole different world. And I thought, and people are engaged. They were all in their suits. And I thought, this is their worship experience. And it is so much not mine. And this woman can tell I'm an outsider. And I was acting like an outsider. I wasn't trying to. And it was instructed to me thinking, okay, I didn't fit. I wasn't trying to be a jerk in any way. And then I was watching kids over there, and they were doing their own thing. And there was a guy in front of me, and clearly his wife had made him come to church, and he wasn't happy. And it was just fun to watch all this. So but I didn't. When I left, I felt a little bit like, I'm not a very good person here. And it was clear. It's clear to her.
Well, that's what she's there for. She's like, I'm here for you.
She was very gracious.
Yeah.
And she thought, oh, look, there's one. There's one.
Gotta get him. Gotta get him to
There's
heaven.
an old guy trying to find Jesus.
I want to boil this down to a point. And P.S., maybe you probably said it best and most sharpest, but I'd like for you to say it again. Oh. What would you, if someone asked you your opinion, which I am, how would you define the CRC? How would you like to define the CRC? How would you like us all to look at the CRC and we would just be like, easily, this is our identity?
You think I said it the best? I think I've been saying I have no idea how to say it.
Well,
You've been saying it, though.
yeah, you've been saying it. Yeah, you've been saying
What have
it.
I been saying?
You said, well, you at least said it to this degree. I didn't say it. I'm not going to say it as articulate as you did. About the gospel, about the Great Commission.
Yes. I guess.
I did it. All right. We could close this episode of the. No, I'm just joking. I'm interrupting.
I like what
there's
Jary
more.
said. I like what Jary said about we've got this eye to the next generation.
Yeah.
I think, I think it's deep in our identity. But again, it might be a vision toward the future more than it is a evaluation of outcomes. But I think we are the Great Commission denomination. We are the denomination that can robustly make disciples of all nations. Yeah, and I think we're centered on the gospel, and Reformed confessional heritage, has us reading the Bible in such a way that we see Jesus at the center. We see his life, death, and resurrection as the most important thing. We're drawn toward cultural engagement rather than retreat, even though a large part of our history was maybe one where we were introverted and we were in a bubble and we did retreat. But that's not who we are. It just was the circumstances at the time, maybe.
I would say
We're decentralized.
Well, you're a denomination that stands strong theologically.
Yeah.
You've thought through the concepts of Reformed faith. You read some of the guys who have been a part of the CRC 100 and however many years ago.
That's right.
And their stuff is like, you can only read a couple pages at a time because it's thick. And yet at the same time, you present the gospel in such a way that people who are not part of the tradition can feel welcome, not judged, not using words that they have no idea what you're saying, and you take people where they are. There's a conviction on theology, and then this incredible love for people at the same time, who are
I'd like to say that too. It's really relationships and love.
Yep.
That is important.
Yep. Driven by a robust or a healthy theology.
Okay. So put these last 3-4 minutes off, kill off the beginning.
Let's live into it. That's right.
Rick's knees doesn't have to be the title anymore.
That's right. That's right. This is
boasts. Or
there you go.
This is vantage point. We can do it.
Good. This is good. I hope we live into this identity more and more every day. We certainly, it's something that we shouldn't drift.
Reed's ramblings.
Ramblings.
Yep. Ridiculous ramblings.
And with that, guys, well, thank you for watching the Disciple Standard podcast. This last 5 minutes of it, other than the last 30 seconds, were great. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, comment down below on your take, and we'll talk to you in the next episode.
The future is now.